Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Wednesday, the 10th of August, 2022. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Let's jump into it. Story number 1, Commonwealth Bank today outlined a full-year profit of $9.6 billion. It was a pretty solid result, up 11% on a year earlier, and the country's largest bank will pay out a higher dividend. Strong growth in home and business lending underpinned the result, as did lower bad debts. But the best may be over, with the higher mortgage rates already biting growth. The bank's profit margin was squeezed in large part due to greater competition in the home lending market. Commonwealth Bank's home loan book grew just below the industry average. Where it did do well was in business lending, outpacing its major rivals. National Australia Bank is traditionally the biggest business lender in that market. Overall, Commonwealth Bank's share price fell 0.3% today, which meant it underperformed its peers. Story number 2, the S&P/ASX 200 fell 0.5% today to close at 6,993 points, dragged down really by tech stocks. The banks, with the exception of CBA, were strong. ANZ closed up 3.4%, while National Australia Bank and Westpac were both 1.4% higher. Coles and QBE Insurance were also better, but otherwise pretty much all the large caps lost ground. CSL fell 1.6%, BHP was off 1.3%, and Wesfarmers shed more than 1%. Goodman Group was the worst performer of the large caps, off 2.6%. Away from the large caps, though, Block was down 6%, while Computershare shed 5%. Gold Miners and Barbara was the worst of the top 200, falling 12% after its earnings guidance for the financial year disappointed investors. A2 Milk Company was another laggard, down 7% after its hopes of entering the United States baby formula market were put on hold following a decision from a key US regulator. The best performer today was Imugene, up 9% after announcing it had started phase 3 drug trials on one of its products. Story number 3, the COVID Safe Contact Tracing app, launched with much fanfare in 2020 when the pandemic was in full swing, has been cancelled. Apparently, it only identified 2 cases of COVID, 2 that weren't manually identified. When launched, Prime Minister Scott Morrison said downloading the app should be like putting on sunscreen, but it never took off and it never really worked. Story number 4, superannuation funds are under scrutiny from the regulator about a lack of action on member complaints. ASIC is threatening action after identifying significant issues with how super funds handle member complaints, including lengthy delays and failing to tell complainants about their right to go to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority. The regulator has identified problem areas with how funds handle member complaints after the completion of the first stage of a surveillance exercise encompassing 35 unnamed trustees and more than 49,000 complaints. The regulator is considering regulatory action where appropriate. And story number 5, tech stocks are back in favour, at least on Wall Street, with a flood of investor money going into the maligned sector. According to the Bank of America, there's fresh optimism about tech companies. Investors bought $3.3 billion worth of tech shares last week. That's the largest weekly total since Bank of America began tracking flows in 2008. Remember, tech stocks were hammered in the first half of this year as interest rate expectations rose. Helping the re-evaluation in recent weeks has been some pretty solid performances in stocks like Alphabet, parent of Google, Amazon and Apple. That's it for the afternoon report for Wednesday, the 10th of August, 2022. Adam Lang and I will be back tomorrow morning for the Wednesday edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.